You can get started.
I'm just fixing my lighting a little bit. We're recording in the studio all day, so I was trying to pick up the background and make sure it didn't look like crazy.
Oh no, that's actually pretty
Thanks.
good. Jessica Lynn, hey, thank you for doing this. And first off, I'm just staring at the guitars back there. What do you have back there?
We have, I think I have 45 to 50 guitars in this house between me and my husband. So these are all his because we're doing his lead guitar parts now on the songs. But he has a Nags back here. He's got a Fender, Gibson, and Ibanez, basically the whole gamut of stuff, depending on what sounds we're looking for.
Well, how much room does it take to store 45 guitars?
Basically the entire living room, the bedrooms, and the studio. Oh, sometimes, you get attached. Say you use it on a record that charts really high or something, then you're like, oh, how am I going to get rid of that one? Or I use it in a special show, and it's hard. You get emotionally connected.
Is that where you usually do your recording at? In that studio?
Yeah,
Well, how first question I did want to ask was the new song Shame. How did you decide that was the one they're gonna have a little bit of a Latin beat to it?
it honestly just kind of came out that way. And I held on to it for a good year and a half almost because I was nervous to release it because it was so different. So I just wasn't sure. A lot of my stuff is, it's country rock. But the song just organically formed that way. And I was like, you know what, let's try something different. And I'm glad I did because it's been charting all over the world and it's been so exciting.
How cool is that just to be, I mean, how important is it for you just to be different and just try new things?
It's fun. Music is art. It should never be put in a box. And I kind of lived my whole career that way. I'm an Italian New Yorker that is doing country music. So I've never really fit the mold to begin with. So I think it's in line.
Yeah, you beat me to that question. What is it like being a country singer in New York?
In the beginning, I had a lot of resistance. People, kind of Nashville being like, you don't sound like anybody else. You don't look like anybody else. And I always stayed true to myself and who I was, and I forged my own path. It wasn't easy. I got a lot of no's before I got yeses, but I think when you always remain who you are and stay true again to your values and your morals, you always get where you need to go.
Where'd you find that first inspiration in New York? 'Cause I don't even think there's a radio station that plays country in New York City.
My dad's a retired New York City street cop, actually. But despite that, and again, being Italian New Yorkers from Brooklyn, he always loved country music. So when I was a kid, he would always have it on. He had Glenn Campbell on in the house always. And Phil Vassar was another one on every car ride was George Strait. So I just grew up feeling really connected to the stories in country music.
Well, how'd you decide, or what was the first, I guess, instance that made you think, hey, I could be pretty good at this. This could be a career path for me.
I never really made that decision, to be honest. It was just always what I did. Ever since, my parents have videos of me like at 3 years old singing and writing songs, and it was just kind of a part of who I was. But I started studying classical piano when I was a kid. That's how I really started getting into instruments. And then I started my first band when I was 13. And from then on, it was just kind of, this is my life.
Well, for you, what goes into writing a song? What is there a formula you have? Do you have is it a 9 to 5 type of job for you? How does that work for you?
My formula is to have no formula. So I just kind of go with what feels right. In the beginning, when I was trying so hard to fit in, I think I was way too in my head about it. Like, oh, this doesn't sound just like country radio right now, or oh, this isn't fast enough for a festival stage. And as I grew as a person and an artist, I started to realize that the best music is music that comes from your heart and not your head. And that's when I think my career really started to take off.
I mean, does that mean you can just do it on a whim? You can just sit down at any time and just say, I'm going to start writing. I'm
No, so
like,
the inspiration has to strike me. So I've literally been running on the treadmill before at the gym, and I hear the woman next to me say something to her friend. I'm like, man, that's a good song. Or I'm walking the dog and it comes, or I'm watching a TV show and I'll hear a phrase. And the way I work is once that light switch turns on, I have to go or I lose it.
well, then where is the strangest place then? That you did find some inspiration.
Um, I guess it's not the strangest, but it happens often at sound check, actually. I have so many audio recordings of us on afternoon, like sound checking for a festival in Germany, for example, and they're just like, we have bass and drums, and they're jamming along. And I'm like, oh, that groove is cool. And I'll tape it and hum something into it, which then winds up becoming a song.
So besides performing, besides writing songs, what else goes into being a country performer? What's the rest of your day or the rest of your job entail?
That's the not fun stuff. I would say the majority of what I do is behind the scenes. The on stage time is so little compared to everything that it takes to get there to that on stage time. I'm a Capricorn. I'm very, very type A. I like to do all my own tour logistics. I do a lot of my own marketing. So for me, every single day looks like being in an office, not glamorous, booking all this week. I was booking our flights and hotels and getting marketing materials ready to announce the big tour. And it's really all admin stuff.
So you just go Expedia and Travelocity, one of those, and just book them, or do you have like a flight itinerary or flight manager?
I've learned many tricks over the years. I've learned that the flights are usually cheaper on like Tuesdays or Mondays as opposed to the weekends, and we just try to rack up a lot of loyalty points. And I usually have like 10 different tabs open with all of the different airlines trying to gauge prices because I'm flying 8 people at a time usually, and it gets expensive. But my biggest tip would be to always browse in incognito mode on your browser because they see you looking and they jack the price up.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh. You said before, just running on a treadmill before can inspire you to write something. Like, how much does fitness, staying in shape, how much does that, I guess, help the creative process?
Fitness is a very, very big part of what I do and who I am. My dad used to bodybuild. My mom is very in shape and very into exercising and working out. My sister is a certified personal trainer. So I just always grew up with fitness being a part of my house. I would say it's not as much as a part of creativity as it is of performing.
Hmm.
For me, I mean, our live show is a full blown rock and roll show. So it's a lot of running around and jumping, and you're trying to sing and actually sound good singing while you're doing all of this. So I train like an athlete before tours and during tours.
Now, do you see more, I guess, performers, maybe switch or maybe veering more towards staying fit than like an old rock and roll lifestyle?
I think it's important. Being on the road is so hard. It's so taxing on your body. I mean, we're getting into hotels at like 3 a.m. and waking up at 6 to get to the next city sometimes. And it's hard. You're out there in elements, elevation, heat, extreme cold sometimes, and you don't want to be out of breath and struggling. And just your fitness is so, so important to just surviving day to day when you're out on tour.
Well, how do you survive, or how do you, I guess, manage to pull through on a 3 hour night sleep or something like that?
You struggle. But I have to tell you, I never miss a workout on the road 6 days a week. I really like HIIT workouts, so that's what I tend to do. I actually burn the most calories ever on stage, though. I always wear my Fitbit because I try to beat myself sometimes. But every single morning I wake up. Obviously, I can't. I'll have to fit it in somewhere. Usually, when we get to the hotel that afternoon on those 3 hours sleep days, but usually I'm up very early, 6, 7 a.m., getting my HIIT workout in, showering before we hit the road.
Where do you train out when you're in New York?
So I do a lot of stuff at home. I love training outside.
Hmm.
So we have a gym in the garage, and then I do a lot of like my burpees and jumping jacks and lunges, all that stuff. I do it outside, and I run a lot around the neighborhood. But it's amazing. In Europe, they actually don't really have gyms at hotels. Like here, you go to every Holiday Inn, Hilton, they all have a gym. Europe is not like that. We were there for 3 months on the last tour, and there was one hotel gym. So a lot of times we're also staying in little B&Bs. So I tend to work out outside or like run through the German countryside. There's so much beautiful scenery. It's incredible working out there.
Where's the best place as far as Europe? Where's your, I guess, your top three places to work out at?
Oh, that's hard. Uh, they're all so different and so beautiful. But there's this amazing manor home that we stay at when we play the north of France and a festival called American Journeys. And that's like a castle. So outside, you're in the gardens with the big, beautiful trees. And I love working out there. And then in Germany, there's a few places where you're literally in the countryside with beautiful flower fields and, you know, the sun setting. And then out west too. Um, you know, it's when you're just looking out and see nothing but sky.
So what do you, I mean, what's your workout like then outside? Like how does that, well, first off, what is your workout? What would your workout be in Europe?
So I like a lot of high intensity training. So I do a lot of boot camp style stuff, you know, like jumping jacks, burpees, lunges, sprints, high knees, all types of stuff like that that really keeps me in good cardio shape. I
Mhm.
unfortunately have bad tendonitis, so it's hard for me to do a lot of weight stuff because it puts so much pressure on
Yeah.
where I'm sensitive. So I tend to just I do a lot of hiking too, but like running up mountains. So I love stuff like that. Just anything that really gets my heart and my lungs going and strong.
Now, is that from, I mean, the tendonitis, is that from guitar playing or is that just something from another injury or?
It's overuse. You know, I do exercise a lot. I'm constantly putting pressure on my hands. I'm constantly playing piano and guitar, which just puts stress. And the only way to fix it is to just rest. So sometimes I'll even on tour, like I'll be icing my wrists because from the constant playing as well as working out, carrying bags or equipment, suitcases, they just get tired. And then I'll always have to modify my workouts, you know, where instead of push-ups, I'll do abs, you know, in the intervals.
Now, when you said France is maybe the best place or one of the best places, what's like the seediest place in Europe that you had to work out at?
Oh man. um, one time I could tell you like war stories from being on the road. I mean, we've been in some situations that no one should ever be in. But there was this one time that we were playing in Glasgow in Scotland, and the promoter, who we have not used since this tour, kept delaying telling us our hotel. And we thought it was strange. We're like, you know, I'm sure everything's going to be fine. You know, it's whatever. Basically, spoiler alert, it wasn't fine. We showed up, it was a hostel.
Oh.
And we're in like this big thing. And we have our expensive equipment and everything with us. And it was like this big room with all of these beds and shared bathroom. We're only there for the one night because our UK schedule is usually very tough, where it's like every day. But that was definitely a place that I did not feel comfortable exercising, let alone leaving any of my things anywhere.
So it was in the UK then is when you.
Yeah, in Scotland, in Glasgow.
So you said when you're at home, you get up, you said relatively early, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You have a normal routine that you take with you from home to everywhere on the road that you just can't do without?
I do. My tour workouts tend to be insanity workouts. I'm a big insanity girl, and I
Shaun T's
tend,
that?
yeah, Shaun T.
I just spoke with him last week. We just did.
Did you?
Yes.
You have to tell him I'm a big fan, and he keeps me on shape. When he sees my calves bumping on stage, it's because of him. But I love his. When I'm home, I tend to do a lot of the longer workouts, like the originals. But he has the 30 minute, and it's an older tape, but that's the one that I do on tour because when I'm jumping around for like 2 hours on stage, I don't really need longer than a 30 minute hit workout in earlier in the day. Otherwise, it's just overkill, and my muscles get so fatigued. But yeah, I take Insanity on the road, and there's never good Wi-Fi in Europe, so I download them all to my phone so I could do them. I usually do them like out in a field somewhere near the hotels or the B&Bs. Like
As far what goes into a Jessica Lynn performance, as far as energy, as performance, as just how do you feel afterward, during it and afterward? Are you drained? Are you ready to
it's
go again?
it's exhausting. So for reference, usually it's funny. A lot of papers come out and call me the Energizer Bunny on stage because I just love. Like I feel like if you go to see a live show, you want to see a show, right? If you just want to listen to the music, you could do that at home. But for reference, in an insanity workout, I usually burn about 250 calories, and on stage I'm like at 800. So that shows how intense it is to sing while moving around and doing that for about a 2 hour period. Um, so it takes a lot out of you. I'm usually dripping in sweat. And it's before I go out for my meet and greets. I always have like a towel, like I can't be hugging people looking like this.
When that happens, though, what is the first thing to go? What's the first thing you feel like, okay, I'm starting to get fatigued a little bit? Is it the legs? Is it the voice? Is it just holding the guitar? When do you start to feel like a little bit like,
Usually, honestly, it's heat is what will really do it. I mean, we've done some like 100-degree, like we played in Italy and they had a heat wave that they haven't had since like the 1960s. It was literally almost 110 degrees, and jumping around in that, singing, performing, exercising basically. We've done a few out west that had like record heat, like 330 with the sun beating on you. And then usually it's more just like it's not one body part, it's just like your overall being just starts, that like real like heat exhaustion feeling when you're being active. And I always take little hydration packets. My favorite are IQ packets. I don't know if you've ever tried those,
mm,
but they're some of the healthiest I found with no sugar, and they're really great. I love their protein bars too.
they'll make it really easy. How do you push through that fatigue on stage and no one notices that you're fatigued?
I think like any job, you just have to be professional. I mean, I've literally been sick to my stomach, food poisoning, jumping around up there. I mean, literally to the point of almost fainting from heat exhaustion, um, flu. I mean, you just have to smile, and just like it's again, you're going to any other job and you have to just act professional. But I think what really keeps you going is that you have all of these people that are so excited that you're there. And I feel like you owe it to them to give them a great show, no matter how you're feeling. I mean, they spent their hard earned money and their time to come drive hours probably to come see you perform, and they deserve your best.
I mean, you perform with people like Keith Urban, Brad Paisley, Richard Marx. I mean, have they given you any advice on like just how to push through on like long concerts like this, or just how to just key to longevity, the key to performance over the long term?
It's really rest, is what I've learned. I mean, you can't overdo yourself. There's so many nights out on the road where the boys are in my band are like, "Oh, I'm gonna go, want to go get a drink after the show, whatever." Like, no, I gotta get in bed because I have my 6 a.m. workout tomorrow before we drive. And you don't want to overuse your voice. I try not to talk too much. When we have hectic schedules, like the UK, last time we were there, we did 13 shows in 14 days. I can't be talking all day and not sleeping and doing fun things after. And I think the most though, the thing that I've learned the most from playing with a lot of legends, people that I've looked up to my whole life, like ZZ Top, I get Richard Marx was my first concert, and it was really cool to get to work with him all these years later. But is more of how they treat people. I've learned from a lot of people that we've played with. I want to be just like that, and I want to be perceived just like that, or I don't. And I think that's kind of what I've taken away from the most.
I mean, is there any temptation to go an all-nighter at this point?
I am the most square person you will ever meet. I'm into my fitness, I'm into my healthy eating. I rarely drink. I love healthy living. I eat vegan, which can be tricky on the road for sure. Um, so sometimes I have to go into the vegetarian territory, especially when we're overseas. It can be hard. But no, for me, like I like to be my best. And to me, like success is my drug. It's my high, like achieving things and being healthy. And that's what I value most in life rather than just a fun night out.
How do you manage? I mean, just to continue a find a vegan menu on the road, especially in Europe or anywhere.
So I've been vegetarian 14 years now. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I switched to predominantly vegan. I'd be lying if I'm 95% of the time I'm vegan. Like if I go out and they accidentally put like some feta on my salad or something, I'll eat it. But I did it for just, I'm a huge animal lover. I have a disabled rescue dog. I've always volunteered on farms and at shelters. And it was just always important to me, the quality of life of all beings, not just human beings. But it can be very tricky. I mean, I've remember once a few years ago, we toured Belgium and they forgot. And I had I had to have ice cream and French fries for 3 days straight. It was the only option. It was one of those like 90-degree days too, and I'm up on stage like sweating it out, and that was the only food I had for my to fuel my body.
Oh, what kind of
But
ice cream was it?
it was chocolate soft serve, and I still remember it. Like I remember looking down at my cone and my fries and be like, "Well, this is what it is." But I do have to say that this past year, we got back from Europe in July this year, and a lot of places are now so vegan friendly. The last European tour was 2019 because of the pandemic, but there were so many places with like vegan schnitzel in Germany, and I could eat everywhere now, and it wasn't like that a few years ago. So it's cool to see so many places kind of opening up their hearts and their menus.
Is your husband vegan as well?
He wasn't. And I'm not the type, I believe with anything, with food, health, religion, beliefs. You should never push your beliefs on anybody else. And I respect everyone's beliefs and opinions. I had my reasons for doing it. My husband wasn't. I had no issue with that. However, he saw a trailer for a documentary, and that was it about 4 months ago. I didn't have to say anything. And, I saw a hardcore video. That's what kind of pushed me into that realm many years ago that kind of scarred me for life. And that's why I never touched it again. But all he had to see was a little 2-second snippet of a trailer. And I was teasing him, like, that's all it took. And he hasn't touched it in 4 months. I have to tell you, he's down 40 pounds. His back pain is gone. And he's never been healthier, honestly.
But before that, how did you navigate dinner at the
Uh,
household?
he would laugh. I would buy steaks and chicken for my dog and not bring. But no, we would cook. He at home he would eat vegetarian. I am a good cook and I have a lot of good recipes like vegan meatballs and things like that I make all the time that do taste good. I'm gonna be honest, vegetarian vegan food years ago did not taste good. Now it tastes good. I mean, as long as I can remember, he just always ate vegan, vegetarian at home, and then when we'd go out, he would order his meat, but no more.
What would be your go-to recipe? Like, what is?
So I've been obsessed with that vegan meatball recipe, and it's like a pure protein ball. So it's tofu, some olive oil, seasoning, lentils, and quinoa. That is it. You literally cook the lentils in quinoa, then food process half the lentils so you get like a different texture, kind of like meat has all those different textures. Put the tofu with some olive oil in the blender, the food processor, so you get like a whip. Put them all together in balls and you bake them for 20 minutes, and they are delicious. I literally will even just pick them up. You put red sauce on them, or whatever. I've made like a coconut curry sauce for them before. Or again, you could literally just pick it up for a pure protein ball with like no fat.
I gotta clip that part. Maybe try that myself.
Yeah,
Doesn't
try
sound,
it.
doesn't sound
It's
bad at
really
all.
good.
Huh,
It's really good.
interesting. Now, what would you do on the road? I mean, can you cook on the road, or is that just way too impossible
It's
to do for
hard.
your own?
We tend to eat out a lot. I always book us hotels with breakfast, so there's always something to eat, there, whether it's like a cereal. They have something in Europe called muesli that I've been obsessed with. That's a really healthy breakfast. They do have it here, but it's basically like granola and all types of things. And that's what I eat every day for breakfast. I use vegan coconut yogurt here, but there I'll just do it without the yogurt. I eat a lot of fruit, um, but it can be challenging. Sometimes when we're at a place for a few days, which is rare, I will buy like bananas, things like that to keep in my bag or in our room. But I always travel with granola bars or protein bars just to make sure that I'm getting what I need.
But when you're on the road as well, when there is no gym and you're outside, do you have like an essential bag, a gym bag with you, or do you have a bunch of essentials you take with you that have to go with you?
I don't. I'm roughing it. I'm on the gravel doing my push-ups. And it's actually funny. One of my favorite memories was we were playing an arena. We were opening for ZZ Top in France. And before the show, I was at our hotel in the morning doing the workout outside this hotel. And you know who comes out and starts training next? He's like, I'm about to train. Barely spoke a word of English, but the trainer for the French military was literally right there. And he teaches them combat and fitness. I mean, everything. So I worked out with him that day, and we've been friends ever since. He showed me all their workouts. So then I was out there with all the guys training the next day, doing our push ups and our burpees. And I gave them like a private little concert inside. And they still come to shows when we go to France.
Now, did he teach you self-defense as well? Any tactics or?
He did. He taught us some. Yeah, he did. He took out the gloves and everything, and the band and all the guys are out in front of the. We made some spectacle for people checking in.
Nothing intimidating there for the fans coming in.
Yeah, I know. He's some security guy. Is this huge guy? He's probably like 6'5", and he had come to a festival last time we were in France too, and kind of stayed as my security. It was nice.
So with that, do you have any when it comes to concert? Do you have a ritual, a pre-concert ritual that you got to go through? Everything lined up, or
I do. I always work out. That to me gets me in like a clear headspace, makes my body feel warm and ready. You know, I'm not so young anymore, so I can't be pulling a muscle or a hamstring when I'm up there jumping around. I always stretch too after my workout. That's really important. And then I always do my vocal warm up. And then I like to sing through at least a few songs. The only fear I have on stage after all these years performing is forgetting the words, because sometimes you just blank. You know, it's not that you don't know them, but sometimes you get distracted, you know, or somebody waves at you and says something and you're focusing, you're like, where am I in this song? Um, so I always go over the lyrics. That's kind of a pre-show ritual. It helps me just feel like in that headspace of remembering, if that makes sense.
has that ever happened?
Oh, all the time. And I'll just do something. I think people notice less when you don't make a big deal of it. You know, like, oh, we do a huge Christmas show every year for Toys for Tots, which has become a big tour that I'm really excited to announce soon. But that is the most stressful because there are so many lyrics in Christmas songs, and you cannot mess up those words because everybody knows every single word.
Everybody has a phone too, don't they?
Yes, they do. We've caught some very embarrassing things on camera. It shows that, of course, always wind up on YouTube.
Now, do you do a lot of charity work, a lot of charitable work with animals, Toys for Tots? Is that a big thing
I,
for you?
I do. Ever since I was a kid, it's just always been a big part of who I am. And I do strongly believe if you have a platform, use it for good. So every year I do Toys for Tots for the Christmas tour. We are actually their largest fundraiser of the season here in New York. And we did over 1,200 toys on the tour this year. We did a few hundred at each stop, which was so exciting and special. I do a lot with veterans, a lot with the military. I can't talk about it, which is so frustrating, but I'll be providing military entertainment this year, which I'm really excited about. We'll be traveling to some really cool places. And I also do a lot with animals. I've always been a huge animal lover. As I told you, I've been vegetarian for 14 years, but over the pandemic, I adopted a disabled rescue dog. She has no back legs, so she's a double amputee with two prosthetic legs, and she required a lot of care and time, and healing her was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I was a foster fail. So now I work with an amazing charity called Joey's Paw, and they put dogs in prosthetic legs and wheelchairs. A lot. I work with a lot of rescues. So it's I have a full calendar.
So how much sleep do you get when you're not on tour?
Not a lot. That's why I need good lighting for my interviews so you don't see my bags.
With that, what with all the work that you do, concerts, charity, what's one thing people would be so surprised Jessica Lynn does as a hobby or is really good at?
I'm really good at teaching. I actually have a master's degree in special education. So that tends to surprise people. Um, but I'm really good with kids, which I guess you could tell from the Christmas show, all the stuff that we do. But yeah, that's probably a fact that is not so widely known.
No. Have you been a teacher in New York City schools?
No, so I got my master's and I was doing student teaching while I did that. And then I worked only substituting or doing leave replacements because I filmed my television specials while I was actually student teaching. So I was always doing music, but I wanted to get my degree. So I never had time to fully teach, but I did do like 3, 4 months at a time. And then I would stop when we'd go on the road, but I haven't gone in about 5 years because just my career has taken off and it's been too busy. But I love kids and I love teaching. It's like performing. You're trying to get an audience to be interested in what you're saying and to get them to connect with you. And I just always loved that aspect of it.
Would you have what do you recall one moment, like one child or I would say one child who really stood out and like really touched you in a way that you still remember?
There were lots of them actually. Kids that felt very comfortable with me to share things with me or confide in me. And I had some difficult classes that other people didn't really believe in. And I remember one of my leave replacements, I raised the average grades in my class by like 30 points. Um, and that's special, and you have kids too that reach out to you. I have kids that still write me from years ago saying how I made a difference to them, or I always made them feel like they had somebody they could talk to. And music is very much the same way that you can connect with people in a very special way. And I think that's such a special thing about it.
One question I forgot to ask earlier, when it comes to working out, when it comes to fitness, what's the one exercise every singer should be doing?
Ooh, that's tough. So I like to do high knees and sing while I do high knees. um, Even just jogging, I think it's so important to get your cardio up. Really, anything that gets your heart racing like that. Because when you're on stage, one with nerves, you're already kind of in that space. And it's really, really hard to project your voice and stay in tune unless you're standing still. So I think just
Now
cardio,
you're coming. What
cardio.
should people expect coming to a Jessica Lynn concert?
They should expect to feel like family. We are a family band. My husband's the lead guitarist. My dad plays bass. My mom is the background singer and the keyboardist. And the other guys have been with me for 12 years. So there's a very special bond on stage. Audrey, my disabled rescue, she's the stage manager. She also comes with us and keeps everybody in line. So expect to feel like family. It's very high energy, feel good. We like a lot of participation. Um, I like to say that you feel like you're there hanging out with us when you're at a show. Like there's no separation between stage and audience.
Did you get a lot of heat then from your family for booking a hostel?
I didn't book the hospital. And that's exactly why I book all of our own travel. Because sometimes you just never know. And when you're in control, you know exactly what you're getting. And, then if the blame should be on me, it should be on me. Like I'd rather have it be that way. But no, I mean, stuff just happens. We've had cars break down. We've had crazy people do stage jumpers. I mean, storms in the middle of playing. We've gone through so much. It just happened.
So where's Jessica Lynn see herself 5 years from now?
I see myself just continuing to do what I love to do, but in a bigger capacity. I don't have hard goals for myself. I feel like when you're so focused on one goal that you miss all of the other amazing things and paths that you could have had while you're so hard focused. Like, for example, say I'm like, in 5 years, I have to have a number one on this chart. Well, maybe when I'm like this, I'm missing all of these other amazing things that I could have experienced or done. So for me, as long as I'm growing every day as a person, professionally, financially, if I 10 followers today and tomorrow I have 11, that's where I want to be tomorrow. I try to just have an open mind and just grow and just always be a little bit better than I was before.
So what are some of the best ways people can find out more about Jessica Lynn?
So you can connect with me on all of my socials, Jessica Lynn Music, and on my website, jessicalynmusic.org. And I have a lot of new music coming this year, and I'm going to be posting about all of that. And you can hear me on every digital streaming platform.
Awesome.